the quick divorce. I felt like everything in front of me turned black. I asked her with a trembling voice, and Catherine looked at me with an annoyed expression. We haven't even been married for a year, yet she looked like a stranger to me. What was all that happy time we spent together? As Catherine spoke, memories of our first encounter flooded back. My name is Bob Johnson, 32 years old. Iskam, I work as a pharmaceutical sales representative, commonly known as a pharma rep. In this job, I explain medications and medical devices to doctors and pharmacists. I met Catherine at a hospital where I had business. Thank you for your hard work, Catherine said, approaching me. That was our first interaction. From then on, we'd often chat during our encounters at the hospital. We found that we liked the same music, watched the same TV shows, and had a lot in common. We clicked immediately and started dating. We got married a year after we began dating. It's only been 6 months since then. And for all intents and purposes, we were still in the honeymoon phase. But recalling those memories only made the idea of divorce even more shocking. Yet Catherine looked at me with that same annoyed expression. What did I do wrong? If there's something you don't like, I'll change it. Just tell me. It's not that. I found an opportunity to be happy. I was confused. As I furrowed my brow, Catherine started to explain. According to her, there's a new doctor at her hospital and they've become quite close. I do recall hearing about a new associate named John at the hospital. He's young, handsome, the complete opposite of me, really. While she's still married to me, it seems Catherine fell for John. I'll pay you alimony. Just let's get the divorce over with. I have a chance to marry a doctor. Don't stand in the way of my happiness. So, was our marriage not making her happy? That was I reflexively asked. Catherine chuckled and said, I was getting past 30, and I felt the pressure to settle down. Look, you had a good income and all, so I thought it'd be a good match. But when I met John, it felt like he's my destiny. I felt devastated after hearing what she said. It's not that she loved me and married to me. I was just chosen for her convenience. Shortly after, we filed for divorce. It was a whirlwind, only 6 months after getting married. After the split, I couldn't bring myself to work. Being Catherine at the hospitals, especially alongside John, was too painful. And whenever John saw me, he'd smirk and sarcastically say, "Thanks for letting her go." I reached my breaking point with that life. I began experiencing nausea and diarrhea every time I thought about going to work. My body was rejecting my reality. I realized this wasn't sustainable, and then I resigned from my job. Man, I'm such a wimp, I mumbled. After that, I moved back into my parents' place. I had told them about the divorce, and they welcomed me with open arms. But I unknowingly developed a mistrust of people. Maybe it was the emotional trauma. Even though I wanted to get another job, I unknowingly thought there were the shadows of Catherine and John. I got into a panic when I had imagined if they were behind me. This fear confined me to my room, where I spent all day long playing online games to escape from reality. I was welcomed by the virtual world, and I felt I belonged there. I felt I was ridiculous to become a recluse in his 30s and reprimanded myself. That the courage to deal with society had long vanished. Living a life where I couldn't even tell if it was day or night, my energy started to wane to the point where even holding a gaming controller felt like a Herculean task. One day, as I was searching the kitchen for something to eat, I overheard my mom crying. What am I even doing? Making my parents this worried. I knew I needed to get a job, but facing reality terrified me. What if I fail at getting a job? What if I find a woman I like, and by some miracle she likes me back, but then cheats with another man? Do I even have a purpose in this life? Maybe it'd be better if I just disappeared. Ever since these thoughts began, I stopped eating altogether. And I don't eat. I can't move. I began to lose the energy to even wake up. Thus, when I was thinking about fading away from this world, my mom woke me up, quite literally. No, she actually slapped me, and she was crying when she did. "What are you doing? Not even eating your meals?" she exclaimed and slapped me again. I had been scolded by her countless times before, but I never imagined she would be so emotional about it. "Wait, I'm scared." In response, my mom told me, "If things don't work out, you can always come home." And she took me straight to a psychiatrist. I received a call on my cell from Catherine just once, but I neither answered it nor called back. I didn't want to worry my mom anymore. So, I decided to keep my distance from Catherine, and then, thanks to the medication and the support from my mom, I managed to reintegrate into society 3 years after my divorce from Catherine. A decade had passed since my divorce from Catherine. Fortunately, I was able to find employment again, and now I'm working for a manufacturer of medical supplies. Since I had a sales background, I took up a sales role, and to my joy, I found a new love at work and remarried. I confided in my current wife that I was previously married, had a horrible breakup, and was afraid of getting married again, to which she laughed heartily and asked, "Do you really think I'm like that?" She has a refreshing, straightforward personality, which made all my past worries seem silly. Since I got remarried and had a son, I felt I was living in happiness. It was as if that nightmarish period was a distant dream. Then, one day, I'll enter wait next trio. I'll go check on Johnson's nursing home next. Most of my sales for the medical supplies are to care facilities. After parting ways with a senior colleague, I headed to the next facility. Of course, there are hospitals too that I'm in charge of, but mostly elder care facilities, so I've never run into Catherine or John. By then, I had stopped wondering what they were up to. However, as I was packing up my documents after a sales call, someone called out from behind me. Do I know them? Occasionally, I'd run into someone I know during sales visits. I turned around out of habit. There was John, who'd been having an affair with Catherine. Even after 10 years, the handsome guy hasn't changed a bit. He has a tall and slender figure, and he seems to be off today because of wearing casual clothes. And what surprised me the most was that next to him, it wasn't Catherine but a very stylish-looking woman. "John. Oh, is that you?" But, and even after 10 years, he still remembered me. I couldn't help but tense up. But without paying any attention to me, the woman next to John playfully asked, "Who's that?" In a coquettish tone, "She looks to be in her 20s. I guess." Did he not marry Catherine? I thought, but then noticed she was frowning at me. "He's someone from my old workplace," John reassured her, and his left hand was noticeably ring-free. It's been 10 years since she had an affair, so I thought I married Catherine. But did you divorce Catherine? As if reading my mind, John chuckled and said, "Don't glare at me like that. Did you get something wrong?" "What do you mean?" "I'm dating this girl now." "I'm not married, am I?" I felt irritated by John, who was laughing heartily. "What's so funny about that? I never expected you to divorce and quit your job." "I mean, I'm a victim too," John then began to explain, as if making excuses. 10 years ago, when I was married to Catherine, it seemed she and John indeed had an affair. But he claimed he never thought Catherine would really leave me. According to John, it wasn't serious. They dated on a whim. It was tough. When I said we should break up, she called me every day like a stalker. I even had to call the police when she came to my place. Catherine did? Yeah, I don't know what happened after I started working at a different hospital, but I heard Catherine left her job and went into a psychiatric ward. That was super annoying. I wanted to punch the laughing John, even though he made a sarcastic comment when I left saying thanks for leaving her. He dated Catherine for fun, and as a result, I became distrustful of everyone. I barely restrained myself and said, "I see. I've got work to do," and quickly left. I don't want anything more to do with John. What I was more curious about was Catherine. John mentioned her turning into a stalker and entering a psychiatric ward. It's just a rumor from John, but I couldn't help but wonder. When I became a recluse, I received one call from Catherine. At that time, I had just started going to therapy thanks to my mom, so I decided not to get involved anymore. Maybe it was a call for help. At that thought, I decided to call a woman who used to be a nurse with Catherine and me in our previous job. That's why I'm concerned. When I got home from work, I told everything to my mom, with whom I'm living along with my wife, about what happened today. Meeting John, how Catherine got dumped after being treated like a stalker, and the news that Catherine has become a recluse that I heard from a colleague. After breaking up with John, Catherine had reportedly been living a reclusive life in her apartment. The same colleague told me that Catherine wanted to apologize to me. I'm thinking maybe I should at least talk to her. If you're thinking of getting back together, I'm against it, said my mom, who knew the reason for my reclusiveness, worried about my mental state. Indeed, it's not entirely without merit. But I don't have any lingering feelings for Catherine anymore. You have a life now. She's just a woman from the past. She got what she deserved, right? I know. but someone needs to give her a reality check. And I was saved by you, Mom. So you can't leave her alone, huh? My wife chimed in as she served tea to my mom. It must be hard for her about thinking of me going to meet my ex-wife. I understand and feel guilty. To be honest, it's none of my business, and anyone could give Catherine that reality check. But I wanted to be the one to give her a piece of my mind. Exactly. Sorry, but I just want to give her a piece of my mind. My wife laughed and said, "Your meddling hasn't changed a bit. I'm so glad I married her. Who would go back to their ex-wife when they have such a wonderful wife?" When I declared that in front of my mom, she just said, "You're stubborn." But with their encouragement, I decided to meet Catherine after many years. A week later, I was at a cafe near the apartment where Catherine and I used to live. I called Catherine and spoke to her for the first time in 10 years. I told her I wanted to meet up, but she refused. However, I persisted, and we arranged to meet at the cafe. Listen, meet at this cafe. Is she really going to show up? 15 minutes have passed since our scheduled meeting. And I still don't see anyone that looks like Catherine. On the phone, she had sounded a bit down, mentioning she had changed. But I reassured her, saying that she couldn't have changed that much in just 10 years. I was by the window fiddling with my phone when I felt someone slowly approaching Bob. I looked up upon hearing that familiar voice, and there stood a woman. I didn't recognize Catherine, but upon closer inspection, I could see traces of Catherine in her face. I was momentarily at a loss for words. Catherine looked so different than I had imagined. Her hair was unkempt. She had clearly gained weight since the last time I saw her, and her once flawless face now had deep wrinkles and dark circles under her eyes. The petite and adorable woman I remembered was nowhere to be seen. Doing my best not to show my surprise, I said, "You're late. It's been a while. How you been? What do you want to talk about?" Catherine, sounding curt, wouldn't meet my eyes. Instead, she seemed preoccupied playing with the ice in her iced coffee. As I was pondering what to say, I overheard. Catherine whispered, "Did you come here to mock me? What, that ring on your left hand? Bob, you got married again, didn't you? What is this? Did you come to make fun of me? That's not it at all, if that's not. And why did you reach out to tell me you're happy you were married, that you're glad we broke up?" To laugh at how low I've fallen, that's not why. My voice raised a little, causing Catherine to freeze momentarily. Yes, I did remarry, but the 3 years leading up to it were hell for me. But you're happy now, right? Yes, I am happy now. But only because I managed to overcome those painful years. Do you know about the time I became a recluse? Catherine. When you wanted a divorce, I lost trust in people. I was so down that I felt like disappearing. But my mom was there for me, helping me pull through. When I thought about vanishing, my mom told me, if things get tough, you can always come back home. If she had given me that wake-up call, I might still be shut away. It felt like looking at my past self, seeing Catherine in her current state. Maybe you're distrusting people right now too. Catherine's But you called me back then because you wanted help, right? I can't and won't help you. But you've realized that you can't go on like this, right? It's a waste to let yourself go just because of some jerk. After all, Catherine was so beautiful that I had fallen for her at first sight. I believe she can bounce back. I added, I did meet up with that guy, and you did the right thing breaking up with him. Catherine kept her gaze down, but I felt I had said everything I wanted to. As a parting shot, I mentioned, you know, you used to be quite the beauty. I'm sure you can bounce back, right? And I thought I saw a spark return to her eyes. Seeing her expression change, I decided to leave. It felt like a proper goodbye. Until on a whim, I told Catherine, thank you. She looked at me, and as if she had finally come to terms with something, she mouthed, thank you too. We met like this after 10 years, and were finally able to say a proper goodbye. When I got home, I felt a weight lifted off my shoulders as I gently stroked my sleeping son's head. A few years later, I'm still working in sales. My wife and I were blessed with our second child, and I'm working even harder to support the family. On one summer day, my wife said, "Hey, take a look at this," and showed me a postcard. It was unmistakably from Catherine, a summer greeting card. Turns out, Catherine went back to her family's farm in Nebraska and decided to help with the farming. I received that letter a year after the cafe incident. It said she's helping with tomato farming and also joined an NPO for community service. Seeing Catherine's cheerful face, both my wife and I couldn't help but smile. She says she'll send us some of the tomatoes they harvest, asking us to try them. I told my wife, who loves pizza, and she was thrilled. Meanwhile, our son, who dislikes tomatoes, made a grimace, chuckling at the difference in their reactions. I couldn't help but feel how truly happy I am now.